"This year, just your brother's family," my mom texted. I said, "Enjoy." They had no idea I owned a $5 million mountain ranch. I invited everyone else. When they saw the photos of our Thanksgiving without them, the calls wouldn't stop. Just Mitch's family this year. Being it small. That was it? 6 words. No greeting, no signature. Just a text from my mother sitting like a slap across my phone screen. I was in my office at the time. Corner suite, 4th floor, glass windows looking out over the Hudson River. And I swear I felt my stomach drop straight through the floor. I stared at it for a while, tried to blink it away. But it was still there. Mitch is my brother, older by 3 years, golden boy since birth. He could mow the lawn, and they'd act like he invented grass. He stayed in Indiana, took over Dad's equipment shop, married his high school sweetheart, had 3 kids and a couple of golden retrievers. Picture perfect Hallmark family. Me, I built a logistics company from the ground up, started with nothing, not even a credit line. Last year I sold it for $180 million. That's not a brag. It's a fact. But you wouldn't know it from the way they still talk to me, like I'm some weird cousin who moved out of state and got too into computers. I'd been thinking about hosting someday, maybe this year. But after that text, I decided it was happening now. My first time hosting, I bought a 38-acre ranch outside Asheville, custom lodge. Full wrap-around porch, lake, stocked with trout, mountain views, like a painting. They didn't even know about it. I was going to surprise them. Instead, I got that text, no call, no conversation, just keeping it small. I didn't reply right away. Just leaned back in my chair, watching a cargo ship push through the Hudson, and felt that same damn ache I'd carried since I was a kid. The one that came with every birthday they forgot, every school award. They shrugged off every holiday dinner where I ended up at the card table while Mitch carved the turkey and Dad bragged about the shop. Then I picked up my phone and typed one word, enjoy, sent it. I didn't ask why, didn't push back. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at a table. I wasn't even invited to. That's when I made the call. I wasn't showing up this year, not to sit in silence while they doubted on Mitch like I didn't exist. I was done playing the quiet role. Quick note before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I wasn't going to be left out again, not after everything I built. I'd celebrate my way this time. They'd find out one way or another just how small I wasn't. The truth is that text from my mom wasn't new. It was just louder. Growing up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I got used to being the other son. Mitch had his photo in the paper by the time he was 16. Local star QB leads North Side to playoffs. He'd walk into the diner on State Boulevard and get free pie. People slapped him on the back. Asked about the game, called him a natural me. I was the quiet one. I'd sit in the garage with a soldering iron and one half-dead boombox from Goodwill trying to make it breathe again. I like the of old wires, the puzzle of it. While Mitch was out at football camp, I was learning how to rebuild a motherboard off scraps. My parents didn't get it. I'd come into the kitchen, covered in grease, excited about something I had built. "Hey Mom, I just got 2 computers talking to each other downstairs," I'd say. And she'd go, "That's nice, Danny." Without even looking up from her People magazine. Then it was, "Did you hear Mitch might get scouted this year? Or Becky's parents are so proud of him." Becky was Mitch's girlfriend, blonde, braces, head cheerleader. She used to wave at me when she came over, but never said more than hi. I don't blame her. I wasn't part of their world. Even when I got into Georgia Tech, full ride, engineering, scholarship, Dad didn't blink Georgia's far. He said, "You sure you wouldn't rather stick closer to home like Mitch did? He's already working part-time at the shop, could use the help." That was the first time I realized they didn't see me, not really at family dinners. I'd talk about my classes or the projects I was working on, and within 10 seconds Mom would cut in. "Mitch is thinking of expanding the shop. He's so good with people." Every damn time, somehow I always ended up at the kids' table next to the cousins who still thought the internet was just email. I was right there and still invisible. They forgot my birthday once I was 22, called home and Mom said, "No, was that today?" She promised to make it up to me, but it never came. What did show up a few weeks later was a Christmas card with a photo of Mitch's family and matching sweaters. No note. Just the card. I kept it, not because I cared, but because it reminded me how easy it was for them to leave me out. Years later, I'd hear my parents telling people, Mitch took over the family business. He stayed local, raised his kids, right? They never mentioned what I was doing, not the company I was building. Not the contracts I landed, not the teams I led, just silence. I remember once I flew back for a family barbecue. I was already running my first logistics startup, burning out trying to make payroll every week. I brought Mom a handmade wooden jewelry box I picked up in Colorado. Thought of you when I saw it, I said, like I wasn't even there. Those years stacked up little cuts that built into something heavier. I didn't say much, just kept working, built my own life in pieces, moved city to city, slept in tiny apartments, never missed a holiday at home, but never really felt home either. No matter how far I got, how much I grew, I stayed that kid in the garage, the other one, quiet one, the one they never bragged about. By the time I turned 24, I was sleeping on an air mattress in a one-room, flat off Del Mar Boulevard in Street Louis. Paint peeling off the windowsills, radiator that rattled like it had asthma, no AC. I'd eat canned chili 5 nights a week, and spent the other 2 debating whether I could afford eggs and toast. Didn't matter. I was building something. I was running freight on the side, just enough cash to keep my internet on, and writing code at night, sketching out an app that could predict supply chain delays for small hospitals. At the time, it sounded dumb. Nobody cared about that kind of stuff until the shelves were empty. But I saw it coming. All it took was one broken link in the chain. And people died waiting for ventilators. I worked 14-hour days, lost track of weekends. I missed birthdays, broke up with a girl who wanted me to be more present, and drank way too much gas station coffee. I failed twice, once because I took on the wrong investor the second time because we tried to scale too fast, nearly lost everything. I didn't miss payroll, not once. My guys stuck with me because they knew I'd bleed before I let them go hungry. It wasn't just a job. We were building a lifeline. When COVID hit, hospitals started calling fast. Suddenly, everyone needed what we had: real-time rerouting of medical supply deliveries. We could track a shipment of blood bags from Tennessee and redirect it to a trauma unit in Chicago. Before the nurses even knew they were running low. We were the back-end heroes, invisible and necessary. By year 2, we were running logistics for 37 hospital systems across 3 states. I didn't sleep. I was living on adrenaline, spreadsheets and takeout. Then came the offer: a Fortune 100 company wanted to acquire us. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought it was a phishing scam. The numbers were real, so was the wire transfer. When the ink dried, I had more money in my account than I knew what to do. With enough to retire 3 times over, enough to disappear if I wanted to. So I did. I bought a ranch, 38 acres outside Asheville, North Carolina, secluded, clean air room to breathe. I didn't tell a soul. It was just me and a builder I trusted, no architects with expensive shoes, no developers trying to maximize square footage, just a blank stretch of land, trees, thick as molasses, and the sound of wind. We spent 18 months on it: timber frame, exposed beams, stone fireplace, big enough to stand in a great room with glass walls that looked out onto the lake. I had dug and stocked with trout. Every window was placed to catch morning light. The kitchen had custom counters made from black walnut slabs. We cut down right there on the property. I hand-picked every piece of it, not for flash, for peace. People think money changes you. It doesn't. It reveals what you were chasing before. You had to count pennies for me. That was quiet control, something that couldn't be taken, dismissed, or forgotten. No one in my family knew, not my parents, not Mitch, not even my cousins. I wasn't hiding it out of spite. I just didn't know them. The update. This wasn't about finally impressing them. It was about building something they couldn't ignore. And maybe, if I'm honest, something they couldn't take credit for. That night, after I sent that one-word reply to my mom, I poured a scotch and stared out the window. The Hudson looked black under the sky, just flecks of light from the bridges breaking it up. My phone sat next to me, buzzing every now and then with some email or calendar alert I didn't care about. I opened my contacts and scrolled to Aaron, my cousin on Dad's side. He and I weren't best friends, but he was solid, level-headed, always honest. I hit call. He picked up on the second ring. "Man, what's up? You get invited this year." I asked. There was a pause. Nope. Mitch is crew only. That's what your mom said. Immediate family this year. First time in 30 years, we're not going. I leaned back in my chair. They did it to everyone. He said, even Grandma. She called me today pissed. Nobody else got an invite. My jaw clenched. This wasn't just about me anymore. They'd cut the entire family out like dead weight to make room for Mitch and his dog and pony show. You wanna do something else? I asked. Somewhere better where everything's booked. I've got a place, I said, big enough for 30. He went quiet. You serious? I said, North Carolina Lodge in the mountains. You get here, I'll take care of the rest. He let out a low whistle. Damn, Danny, let me talk to Kayla. Within 20 minutes, he texted back. We're in. By the next morning I had 10 RSVPs, then came more. 3 cousins said they'd bring their wives and kids, 1 offered to smoke a turkey. Aunt Lila wanted to know if she could bring her famous apple pie, but it was Grandma's call that sealed it. She didn't even say hello. Tell me when to pack. That hit me harder than I expected. Because in all those years of being sidelined, I don't think anyone had ever asked to come to me for a holiday. They just assumed I'd show up and fit into whatever seat was left over. Not this time. I spent the next day mapping out room arrangements, testing cabin rentals, nearby calling in favors. I didn't care what it cost. I wanted them all to be comfortable. I wanted it to feel like a real Thanksgiving, not some sad little exile potluck. Aaron texted again. You sure we're not intruding? I shot back. You're the damn guest of honor. He sent the thumbs up, then added, can't wait to see what you've built. Neither could I, because for once, it wasn't about proving anything, it was about finally choosing who I wanted at my table. I flew out to Asheville a week early, landed just before sunset. The mountains were washed in orange light. The air smelled pine and cold dirt. First thing I did, drive straight to the ranch, windows down, letting it hit me. I had really pulled this off. My estate manager Tom met me at the front steps with a clipboard and a walkie clip to his belt. We're feeding 30, I told him, and I want it done, right? Got it. He said, we already confirmed the chef. Do you want past order Rivers or buffet style? Neither. I want family style, big plates, full table. We went room by room. Each guest bedroom got a deep, clean, fresh linens, baskets with custom touches, bourbon and smoked almonds in Uncle Ray's room, crossword books and a magnifier lamp in Aunt Lyle's. Toy trucks and dinosaur gum is for the twins. I didn't want anyone showing up and feeling like an afterthought. We hired a local chef with Appalachian roots. She brought her own cast iron pans, said Grace before starting prep, and nearly cried when I showed her the kitchen. By Tuesday the cabins were booked and stocked. Firewood stacked, hot cider on tap. I made sure the great room had enough seating, and checked that the surround sound worked for Grandma's old jazz CDs. On Thursday morning, they started to roll in. First was Aaron driving a rented SUV with Kala and their 2 kids. He stepped out, dared at the lodge, and just said, holy shit, I grinned. You made it. He shook his head, still looking up at the beams. This is yours. It's mine. After that, it was like a parade. Eli showed up with his new girlfriend. First time anyone had met her. He walked through the front door, mouth open, and said, I thought you were still doing it stuff. I laughed. I was. Now I do this. Uncle Ray gave me a bear hug and whispered, you always were the dark horse. Aunt Lila cried when she saw her room and said, no one's made me feel this welcoming years. I kept moving, greeting, pouring drinks, answering questions. Every face that came through that door reminded me how long it had been since any of us were treated like we mattered by 5 o'clock. The house was alive. Kids racing down the hallway, someone strolling a guitar on the back deck. Eli starting a fire pit out by the lake. You could hear laughter through every wall, and then we sat down to eat. The long table filled the great room. Candles, flickering bowls passed hand to hand, no kids' table, no toast from Dad, just all of us. School, welcome, fed. The fireplace popped behind us. The ceiling echoed with clinking glasses in real conversation. I looked down the line and saw 30 people who had been brushed aside, just like I had. And not one of them looked bitter. They looked home halfway through dessert. Grandma leaned over and tugged my sleeve. Come here, Daniel. I followed her out to the entry hall where it was quiet. Took my hand. You gave us back Thanksgiving. I opened my mouth, but she kept going. We needed this more than could have shut us all out, and no one would have blamed you. But you open your doors instead. That takes guts. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. Just gave my hand a squeeze, then walked back in like nothing happened. I stood there a second letting that settle, not because I needed the praise, but because it felt like a damn breakthrough. This wasn't Mitch's house or my parents'. This wasn't a rented hall or a potluck in a church basement. This was mine. For the first time in my life came to me the morning after Thanksgiving. I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. 6 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad. 1 text from Mitch that just said, "Really classy move." No one said a word all year, and now suddenly, they were all blowing up my phone like I'd stolen something. I tossed it on the bed and went downstairs. By then, most of the crew was already up eating breakfast, burritos, and pouring coffee. Aaron had mapped out a hiking trail by the lake. Aunt Lila was setting up a card table for a puzzle. It felt like a Saturday at summer camp. When they left for the hike, I finally grabbed a mug and slipped into the library. Dark wood walls, leather chairs, big window, looking out over the water. I sat down, took a sip, called Mom. She picked up on the first ring. "Daniel," she snapped. "Why didn't you tell us? Everyone's talking about your house. Your event? Even the pastor mentioned it in his sermon this morning." I didn't flinch. "You said you were keeping it small, so I made other plans that wasn't about you," she said quickly. "We just thought you'd be busy. You're always working, and Mitch's family was easier to coordinate. So you just cut out the rest of the family." She exhaled hard, like I was being unreasonable. "You're blowing this out of proportion." From the next room, I heard Grandma's chair creaked by the fire. Then her voice put them on speaker. "Danny." I didn't hesitate. "Hit the button. What's this about?" Dad's voice came through. Grandma didn't wait. "Robert, Judy. You've ignored this boy. His whole life acted like he was some quiet problem you didn't know what to do with. Now you're shocked. He built something without you. Be grateful. He still let the family in dead silence." I leaned forward, not saying a word. Grandma kept going. "You ever think maybe if you'd made space for him at your table, you'd be at his now?" More silence than Dad muttered. "That's not fair." "No," she cut in. "What's not fair is how he got treated all these years." Mom finally spoke again, voice lower now. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Then listen for once." Grandma said, "This isn't about a dinner. It's about who you show up for." I let the weight of it hang in the air. They didn't argue, didn't apologize either. Just sat there, probably trying to come up with a way to spin it. I ended the call without another word, set the phone down, leaned back, and stared out at the lake. For the first time in years, I felt something shift, like a knot that had been sitting in my chest since I was a kid, had finally started to loosen. After I hung up that call, I didn't touch my phone for the rest of the day. Let the cousins hike, Grandma nap by the fire. Let the twins build pillow forts in the hallway. I just let it all breathe, no more noise, no more explaining. That night I cracked a beer and sat on the back deck, feet up on the railing, watching the sky go black behind the ridgeline. Then, the texts started. First one was from Mitch, no greeting, no punctuation, just didn't expect that. But I get it. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to tell him it was too little, too late. Next day, Mom sent one. "Can we come visit sometime? Just the 2 of us?" Then Dad saw pictures. "Looks nice. Proud of you." No question mark, no follow-up. Just tossed out like a comment on the weather. I didn't answer right away. Let it sit. Some things didn't need instant replies, some things deserve space. But when Grandma asked if she could stay another few days, I wrote back immediately. "You can stay as long as you want." She smiled from her chair near the fireplace, and said, "That spot has my name on it." I told Tom to keep her room warm and make sure the fridge stayed stocked with her favorite ginger snaps. Over the next week, messages kept rolling in from cousins. "Next year, to best Thanksgiving we've had in years." Wherein, if you are, none of them mentioned Mitch. No one asked where my parents were. They didn't need to. This wasn't about who wasn't there anymore. It was about who showed up. Eli called me one night. "What you did, right? You shifted the whole damn thing. Took the holiday and flipped it. We used to just show up because it was tradition. This actually felt like family that landed deeper than he probably meant it to. Because all my life, I'd been orbiting their table, showing up out of obligation, trying to belong in a space that never saw me. Now I wasn't chasing that seat anymore. I was building something different. Something that looked like me, felt like me. And the people who got it, who felt it, that was the only crew I needed. Christmas rolled around, and for the first time in a long time, I invited the old crew back, just them. My parents, Mitch, Catherine, his wife. No big guest list, no cousins, no aunts, no uncles. I wasn't about trying to impress anyone. I wanted to see if they could meet me where I was. Now. They showed up a few days before Christmas Eve, all packed into Mitch's SUV, looking like they were driving into a whole new world. I met them at the door, which stepped out first, just like I knew he would, that look on his face. The same one he used to get when he saw someone else's success. A little skeptical, a little impressed, but mostly distant. "You really built all this?" Mitch asked, looking up at the lodge, then back at me. "Every square inch," I said. No pride, no apology, just fact. Mom and Dad didn't say much at first, just glanced around like they didn't know where to put their eyes. I watched them, the tension in their shoulders, the way they couldn't quite settle into the space. Like they didn't belong. Like I didn't belong in their world anymore. We had dinner in the great room, no fancy silverware, just family-style plates, roast beef, mashed potatoes, a few bottles of wine. The conversation started slow, like we were all strangers trying to find common ground, but then it started shifting. We really talked, no small talk, no weather reports, no Mitch talking about his shop. We went deep about business, about resentment, about all the times I'd shown up and still felt like I was invisible. Dinner got real. We talked about old wounds, the times I felt invisible. It wasn't easy, but they listened. Mitch didn't say much. He listened, but he wasn't the talker. He'd never been. I figured he was just thinking through it, all figuring out where he fit into this new version of me. After dessert, when everyone was standing up to leave, Mitch pulled me aside. Didn't say a word at first, just put out his hand. I shook it. And before I could pull away, he said, "You did good, Danny, real good." It wasn't much, but it was enough. They left later that evening, Dad shaking my hand, Mom giving me one half hug. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a small one. That night I stood by the window in the great room watching the snow fall. It was thick, swirling in the cold night air, blanketing everything in white. Could hear the faint sound of wind outside and the crackle of the fire behind me. For once I wasn't bitter. I wasn't wishing they had been different, or that I had been different, or that things had gone a different way. I was just damn glad. I'd finally shown them who I really was. New Year's Eve, I stood on the dock behind the lodge. Bourbon in one hand, the other shoved deep in my coat pocket. The wind was sharp off the lake, biting through the layers, but I didn't care. Stars stretched clean over the water, no city lights to wash them out. I just stood there and breathed it in. Didn't feel like the end of a year, felt like the end of something bigger. I thought about that kid in the garage back in Fort Wayne, the one with burnt fingers from soldering irons, listening to his parents brag about Mitch scoring another touchdown. That kid used to stare at blueprints and wonder if any of it would matter. If he'd ever be more than a footnote in someone else's family photo. He didn't know it back then, but he was laying the groundwork. Now I had 38 acres to my name, 2 companies, a family chat that actually included me, a life that looked like mine, not the one I was told to settle for. Cousins were already tossing ideas around in the group thread. Thanksgiving, too. 0 cabin themes, potluck rotations. It was turning into a real thing. Grandma calls me once a week now, not just to check in, sometimes just to talk. She said she sleeps better up here, that the fireplace is her new favorite sound. And then Mom sent me a recipe last week. Corn pudding folded up in a card that said, "Thought you might want something from home." I read it twice. Not sure if it was an apology or just a peace offering. Either way, I kept it. Maybe things will get better, maybe not. They might slide back into old habits next year. They might not come at all. But here's the difference. I'm not waiting for a seat anymore. I built my own damn table, and it's big enough for anyone who ever made me feel seen. That's the rule now. Show up or don't, the doors open. No more chasing approval, no more hoping someone finally notices. Just me living the life I built. On my terms, I raised my glass toward the lake, the wind howled. And I smiled into it. Here's to the boy in the garage. I said, you made it.